Descending, the wagon wheels groaned across the dirt, each turn kicking up a cloud that clung to the morning air. Her brothers laughed from the porch, their voices sharp as broken glass. Barren as the dust she rides on, one of them spat, folding his arms. The rancher won't know if he's taking a wife or another mule. She kept her eyes down, skirts brushing against her boots, hands steady though her heart beat like a wild colt. The word Barren rang in her ears, the cruel badge they had nailed to her since the day the healer whispered she would never bear a child. Her mother, thin-lipped and silent, held out a bundle wrapped in worn linen. No blessing, no touch to the cheek, just the weight of shame passed from hand to hand. The driver clicked his tongue. The wagon jerked forward. The house shrank behind her, along with the laughter that chased her down the road. The land stretched open, a flat, endless plain where the sun clawed its way up through a haze of red. The air smelled of iron and dust, sharp enough to sting the nose. Every creak of the wagon spoke of exile. Hours passed. The silence grew heavy, broken only by the squeal of wheels and the caw of crows circling overhead. She kept her hands folded tight, nails cutting crescents into her palms. By mid-afternoon, the land began to change. The ground cracked deeper, the horizon broke into ragged canyons, and the wind carried the bitter tang of sagebrush. Somewhere beyond those walls of stone waited the man they called rancher. They said little of him in town, only that he kept to himself, living on a spread that clung to the canyon like a shadow. Some whispered he had once been quick with a gun. Others swore he was cursed, his wife and child buried on the edge of his land. Whatever truth lay in it, he had agreed, wordless, almost careless, to take the barren daughter. The wagon slowed near sundown. Ahead, a fence line stretched, broken and leaning, and beyond it rose a cabin weathered gray, its roof bent like an old man's back. Smoke curled from the chimney, thin and reluctant. He stood on the porch, tall, shoulders broad as a barn door, hat pulled low against the light. A scar cut across his jaw like a river on a map. His hands rested easy on the rail, but there was weight in them, the kind that spoke of years holding a gun, a rope, or a shovel. The wagon creaked to a halt. Dust swirled around her boots as she stepped down. The bundle of linen pressed tight in her arms felt heavier than stone. Their eyes met. His were gray, cold as river rock, measuring, waiting. He didn't move, didn't speak. The driver cleared his throat, spat into the dirt. Here she is. Family said you'd take her. The rancher said nothing. Only the wind answered, tugging at her hair, carrying the far-off howl of coyotes. She set her bundle down on the step. Her voice came quiet but steady. My name's Anna. The rancher's eyes flickered, barely a shift, then settled again. At last he spoke, his voice deep, worn, as if pulled from the bottom of a well. Name don't matter out here. Work does. Behind them, the wagon wheels groaned once more, turning back toward the road. She didn't look after it. She knew no one would wave. The rancher pushed the door open. The hinges moaned. Inside, shadows clung to the walls, the scent of wood smoke and sweat heavy in the air. A single chair, a table scarred with knife marks, a bed in the corner. No flowers, no softness. He pointed toward the shelf. Food's there. Water by the pump. Sunrise, we ride fence. And that was it. She sat on the edge of the bed, her bundle beside her, listening to the silence press down. Outside, the coyotes cried again. She thought of her brother's laughter, her mother's turned face, the word carved into her like a brand, Barren. Yet in the stillness of that cabin, with the canyon rising like stone giants beyond the window, she felt something shift. Not mercy, not welcome, but the edge of something harder, sharper. A chance, maybe. The fire popped in the stove. The rancher moved about quietly, boots against the floorboards, never once looking her way. He carried himself like a man who had buried too much to waste words. She laid her hands in her lap, fingers raw from clenching. A whisper escaped her lips, soft enough that only the walls could hear. Let them call me what they will. Out here, I'll be something else. The night settled heavy, stars spilling across the sky like silver dust. In the distance, a wolf's howl rose against the canyon walls. The rancher sat in his chair, hat tipped forward, silent as stone. And there, in a half-light of exile, the tale truly began. The canyon's secrets. The rope snapped tight in her hands, burning her palms as the calf jerked against the post. Sweat ran down her temples, dust clinging to every line of her face. Pull higher, the rancher barked from across the pen, his shadow stretching long in the sun. She bit back the sting, lifted harder, the calf bawling until the knot held. Her arms trembled, but she did not let go. For weeks the work had ground at her. Fences mended, cattle driven, water hauled. Her skirts were torn, boots scuffed raw, nails broken. Each night she dropped into bed bone tired. Yet each morning she rose again, wordless, waiting for the rancher's nod. Today, at last, he gave one. Barely more than the tilt of his chin, but enough. The wind carried the smell of sagebrush and the far-off tang of rain that would never fall. Coyotes yipped across the canyon, mocking wild. At dusk, she walked to the grave by the fence line. 2 stones marked it, names carved deep but weathered near smooth. She knelt, brushed away the sand, laid a sprig of wildflower. Behind her, boots crunched. "You don't need to bother with that," the rancher said, his voice low. She didn't turn. Somebody should. Silence stretched, broken only by the creak of the fence. Then his steps faded back toward the house. That night, the lantern cast long shadows across the cabin walls. He sat in his chair, hat low, sharpening a knife slow and steady. She stitched a tear in her dress by the stove, the thread trembling in her fingers. Outside, the horses shifted restless. A dog barked, then went silent. She looked up. Something's out there. The rancher didn't move, only listened. Then, in one fluid motion, he set the knife down, reached for the rifle against the wall. The door swung open. Cold air swept in. The moon hung full above the canyon, silvering the rocks. Shapes moved at the edge of the fence. Men on horseback, still as shadows, watching. The rancher stood in the doorway, rifle across his arm. He didn't call out, didn't wave them off. He only waited. The riders lingered, the glow of a cigarette flaring red in the dark. Then, as sudden as they came, they turned, hooves pounding into the night. She stood frozen by the stove, needle clutched tight. Who were they? His voice came flat. Men who don't belong. Sleep was scarce after that. The coyotes wailed, the horses stamped, and the air felt thick with unseen eyes. The next morning, he led her to the canyon rim. The land fell away sharp, walls painted in fire and shadow. Below, the river wound like a silver snake, the sound of water faint against the wind. "Look close," he said. Far below, glints of metal winked in the sun, spent shells, a rusted spur, the remains of a campfire. "They've been here before," he said. "They'll be back." She wrapped her arms around herself against the wind. The canyon seemed to hum with danger, its silence louder than gunfire. Days passed under that shadow. She worked harder, learned faster. The rancher showed her how to ride with her weight low, how to keep her hand steady on a rifle. He tested her aim at fence posts, bottles, coyotes darting in the brush. Each shot cracked across the valley, echoing off the stone. One evening, as the sun bled red into the horizon, he handed her his revolver. Heavy, worn, smelling of oil and smoke. "Try it." She lifted it, steady despite the tremor in her chest. Pulled the trigger. The bottle shattered against the fence post. The rancher's eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in surprise. "You done that before?" She shook her head. "No, but I've watched." His mouth twitched, almost a smile, then vanished as quick as it came. The nights grew colder. Smoke curled from the chimney, carrying the scent of wood and iron. But rest never came easy. The memory of riders at the fence haunted the dark. Then the fire came. She woke to the crack of timber splitting, the sky outside glowing orange. Smoke clawed at her throat. She stumbled out, hair whipping wild in the hot wind. The rancher was already in the yard, shouting, driving the cattle from a neighboring homestead that burned like the mouth of hell. Flames leapt high, sparks raining down. And there, through the smoke, she saw a child, small, coughing, trapped against a broken wall. Without thought, She ran. Boards fell, sparks singed her arms, the heat blistering. She reached the child, scooped him close, wrapped her body around his. His sobs cut through the roar of fire. The rancher pulled them free, dragging them into the night air. The homestead crumbled behind them, ash rising like black snow. She held the boy tight, rocking him as if he were her own. His tiny hands clutched at her dress, his face buried against her chest. The rancher looked at her then, not with the cold eyes of a man hardened by loss, but with something softer, almost broken. Smoke hung heavy, flames dying slow. The boy coughed, whimpered, then clung tighter. And in that moment, beneath the ash and ruin, the word Barren no longer fit her. The gathering storm. The saloon doors slammed open, wind carrying dust across the floorboards. Men turned from their drinks as riders clattered into town, iron horseshoes striking sparks. Their leader swung down first, boots heavy, spurs ringing sharp. Kane Mercer, someone whispered near the bar. Glasses stilled, dice frozen mid-throw. His eyes were cold, his smile thinner than a knife's edge. He carried himself like a man who'd ridden too far down the wrong road to ever turn back. The rancher stood at the far end of the room, back straight, hat low. The Barren daughter, Inna, waited in the shadow near the wall, unseen by most. Kane's voice cut the silence. Thought I smelled a ghost. The rancher didn't flinch. His hand rested on the bar, nowhere near the Colt at his side. You should have stayed buried, Kane. Kane laughed, a sound like gravel spilling down a canyon wall. His men filled the room, their presence thick as smoke. The air tasted of whiskey and fear. Anna's hand slid to the revolver at her hip. She felt the weight, solid, steady. Kane's eyes flicked toward her, narrowed. And what's this? A girl with a gun? You teaching school now, old friend. The rancher's jaw tightened. He said nothing. Kane leaned close, voice low but carrying. You've got something of mine. Gold, maybe. Or maybe just a debt. Either way, I'll take it back. And if that ranch of yours burns while I'm at it, well, fire don't ask forgiveness. His men laughed, harsh and ugly. Anna stepped forward, boots striking hard on the wooden floor. Her voice cut clean. You'll take nothing. The saloon went still. A murmur rippled, disbelief that she'd dare to speak. Kane turned slow, studied her as though she were a puzzle piece that didn't fit. Then he smiled wider, cruel. The Barren bride. I've heard the whispers. They sent you west as a joke, didn't they? Tell me, girl, do you truly believe you belong here? Her grip tightened, but her voice stayed level. I believe in the land. I believe in the graves he keeps. And I believe a man like you doesn't deserve another sunrise. Gasps broke the silence. Chairs scraped as men pushed back, not wanting to stand between Kane and her. Kane's laughter rolled again, but there was no humor in it. Bold words for a woman with nothing to lose. Anna's eyes didn't waver. Already lost everything. That makes me dangerous. The rancher rose then, finally moving, his shadow long across the floor. His hand brushed the revolver at his side, but it was Anna's defiance that hung heavier in the room. Kane tipped his hat mockingly. Tomorrow then, at your canyon. Let's see if the girl fights as sharp as she talks. He turned, his men filing out behind him like wolves melting into night. The saloon exhaled, men whispering, heads shaking. An old voice from the corner spoke, thin, raspy, but steady. Mark my words, the storyteller said, eyes glinting in the lantern light. That girl's destiny will outshine us all. No one answered. They only watched her as though seeing her for the first time. The ride back to the ranch was silent. The night pressed heavy, stars scattered like cold fire above. The cattle shifted restless in their pens, sensing the storm to come. In the cabin, the rancher set his rifle on the table, hands working the chamber with slow precision. His voice came low. Kane Mercer, don't bluff. He'll come. He'll bring hell with him. Anna set down the child she had rescued days ago, now sleeping curled on a blanket near the stove. She brushed ash from his cheek, her touch soft as breath. Then she straightened, eyes hard. Then we meet him. The rancher shook his head. This ain't your fight. She stepped closer, firelight carving shadows across her face. It became my fight when I carried that boy out of the flames. It became my fight when they sent me here to be laughed at, only to find work worth bleeding for. Don't tell me where I belong. I've decided that myself. The rancher looked at her then, truly looked, her face lined by hardship, her eyes burning with something that would not break. A part of him, buried deep under years of grief, stirred. "You're not ready," he muttered, though doubt edged his words. She lifted his revolver, spun the chamber, and snapped it shut with a clean click. Her aim was steady as she pointed at the lantern on the table. One shot rang, glass exploding, oil splattering the wall. Darkness rushed in. When the smoke cleared, the rancher's voice came rough, almost reverent. "Maybe you are." The town turned its back the next day. Shop doors closed early, shutters drawn. Folks whispered from windows, but offered no help. "They'll bring ruin," a man muttered. "Best let Cain take what he wants." But the old storyteller sat on the porch, pipe glowing. When Anna passed, leading her horse, he called out, "You ride tall, girl. Don't let them make you small again." She touched the brim of her hat in answer. By nightfall, the canyon brimmed with silence. Crickets hushed. Even the coyotes held back. The air felt charged, waiting. Anna stood at the fence line, revolver at her side, eyes on the horizon where torchlight flickered like angry stars. The rancher stepped beside her, rifle in hand. His voice was quiet. "If we fail, the land dies with us." Her reply came calm, certain. "Then we won't fail." The torches drew nearer, the sound of hooves rolling like thunder through the stone. Cain's gang poured into the canyon mouth, faces hard, weapons ready. Anna's breath slowed. Her fingers curled around the revolver's grip. The rancher glanced at her once more, as though seeing not the girl who had been mocked and sent away, but something else entirely. The first torch hit the dirt. Cain's voice bellowed across the canyon. "Time's up." Anna stepped forward, boots crunching against the gravel. The child's cry faint behind her in the cabin. She raised the revolver, arms steady, fire in her eyes. And the storm truly began. The legendary showdown. Torches flared against the canyon walls, firelight throwing jagged shadows across the stone. Cain Mercer rode at the front, black hat pulled low, pistol gleaming at his side. His men fanned out behind him, a tide of steel and snarling faces. Anna stepped into the open, boots striking gravel, revolver steady at her hip. The moon carved her in silver, her hair wild in the wind, her stance unshaken. The child whimpered from the cabin behind her. The rancher stood a pace off, rifle leveled, his jaw set tight. But it was Anna who held the line, her presence drawing every eye. Cain's laugh echoed harsh, bouncing from canyon wall to canyon wall. "Well, look here. The Barren bride stands before me like she owns the land. Tell me, girl, how do you plan to stop hell itself with one pistol?" Anna raised the revolver, cocked the hammer. The sound cracked sharp in the silence. "By sending hell back where it came from." A murmur ran through his men. Cain's smile faltered, just a flicker, before he spurred his horse forward. "Fire," he roared. Gunshots split the night. Bullets sparked off rock, tore through brush. The rancher fired back, every shot ringing with grim precision. Men shouted, horses screamed, the canyon filling with smoke and thunder. Anna dropped to one knee, fired once. Cain's right-hand man spun from his saddle, crashing to the ground. Another rushed her flank. She pivoted, squeezed the trigger, and the outlaw fell before his blade reached her. The gang pressed hard, circling, firing wild. Sparks rained as bullets struck stone. The child cried out inside the cabin. Anna's heart surged, her aim steady as she cut down another rider who charged too close. Cain rode through the smoke, firing fast, each shot near finding its mark. He bellowed above the chaos, voice cruel. "She's mine. Leave the rest." The rancher fought to hold the line, his rifle cracking, but his shoulder jerked back as a bullet tore in him. He staggered, blood darkening his sleeve, nearly falling. Anna fired again, covering him, eyes blazing. She shouted above the gunfire, voice fierce, "Stand! Damn you! They'll not take this land while I draw breath." The rancher caught himself, leaned heavy on the fence, and looked at her through the haze, saw not the girl they mocked, but a warrior forged in fire. Cain spurred closer, his revolver raised, his grin wicked. Into the trail, girl. Anna waited, breath even, finger steady. The moment stretched, the canyon holding its breath. Cain fired. She moved first. Her shot cracked, pure and sharp. Cain jerked, staggered, the flame of his pistol dying before the bullet left the chamber. He toppled from his saddle, crashing to the dirt. The canyon went still. His men froze, eyes wide. Then, one by one, they turned, spurred hard, and vanished into the night, leaving their leaders sprawled in the dust. Smoke drifted low. The gunfire faded to silence, broken only by the labored breaths of the living. Anna lowered her revolver, hand steady though her chest thundered. She walked to where Cain lay, his lifeblood darkening the ground. His eyes found hers, defiance flickering, then fading to nothing. She holstered the revolver. Behind her, the child ran from the cabin, flung his arms around her waist, burying his face in her dress. She bent, cradling him close, soothed his sobs with whispers only he could hear. The rancher stepped forward, clutching his wounded arm, his eyes locked on her. His voice came rough, thick with something unspoken. They called you Barren, but tonight you gave life back to all of us. The wind carried the words, soft against the canyon walls. Stars burned bright above, cold witnesses to what had passed. Anna rose, the boy still clinging to her. She met the rancher's gaze, her own steady, fierce, alive. And the old storyteller's voice, carried down the years, wove the ending into legend. They mocked her, cast her out, named her barren. But when fire came to the land, it was she who stood unbroken. She faced the wolves with nothing but courage and steel, and when the smoke cleared, a child called her mother. They say the canyon remembers her footsteps still, and that the desert wind carries her name. Not as a joke, not as shame, but as a promise. The flames died, the night stretched on, and a new dawn waited just beyond the horizon. And so she came back not empty, but with a child. And that is how legends are born on the frontier.